In the late 19th century, a man stood on the gallows in England. The rope was placed around his neck. Officials prepared the execution. A crowd waited silently. In a moment, the trapdoor beneath his feet would open, and the sentence of death would be carried out. But something strange happened. The lever was pulled, and nothing happened. The trapdoor refused to open. The man standing on the gallows that day was John Babbacombe Lee. His story would become one of the most unusual legal cases in British history. Lee was born in 1864 in the town of Abbot Skerswell. He grew up in a poor household and worked various jobs during his early life. At one point, he served as a footman in the home of a wealthy woman named Emma Keyes. Keyes lived in a house called The Glen in the coastal area of Babbacombe. In November 1884, a fire broke out in the house. When the flames were extinguished, a horrifying discovery was made. Emma Keyes had been murdered. Her throat had been cut. Police quickly began investigating the crime. At the time of the murder, Lee was living in the house as a servant. He had previously been suspected of minor theft, which made authorities suspicious of him. Despite the fact that the evidence against him was largely circumstantial, Lee was arrested and charged with the murder. The trial took place in Exeter. The prosecution argued that Lee was the only person who could have committed the crime. However, no one had witnessed the murder, and there was little direct evidence linking him to the act. Even so, the jury found him guilty. Lee was sentenced to death by hanging. His execution was scheduled for February 1885. On the morning of the execution, Lee was led to the gallows inside Exeter Prison. Officials prepared the mechanism. The rope was placed around his neck. The executioner pulled the lever. But the trapdoor beneath Lee's feet did not open. Officials stopped the procedure and examined the equipment. They tested the trapdoor again. This time, it worked perfectly. Believing the problem had been fixed, they returned Lee to the platform. Once again, the rope was placed around his neck. Once again, the lever was pulled. And once again, the trapdoor failed to open. A second time. Officials were shocked. They tested the mechanism again without Lee standing on it. The trapdoor opened normally. A third attempt was made. Lee stood on the gallows once more. The lever was pulled. For the third time, the trapdoor refused to open. At that point, prison officials faced a legal and moral dilemma. They had attempted the execution 3 times, and each time the mechanism failed. Under British law at the time, the execution could not simply continue indefinitely. The unusual situation forced authorities to reconsider the sentence. Eventually, Lee's death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Many people saw the event as extraordinary. Some believed it was divine intervention. Others thought the malfunction was simply mechanical coincidence. But whatever the explanation, Lee became widely known as the man they could not hang. He spent more than 20 years in prison before finally being released in 1907. After his release, he told his story publicly and published a memoir about his experience. For a time, he even toured giving lectures about the case that had made him famous. What happened to him afterward remains somewhat mysterious. Historians believe he may have later moved to the United States and lived quietly under a different name. His ultimate fate is still uncertain. Yet the strange events of that winter morning in 1885 remain unforgettable. A man sentenced to death, standing on the gallows 3 separate times. And each time, the trapdoor refusing to open, leaving behind one of the most bizarre and unexplained moments in the history of capital punishment. You've been listening to an audio podcast from History's Mysterious Minds, a story from the past filled with mystery, intrigue, and questions that still echo through time. If you found this episode interesting, thought-provoking, or informative, please take a moment to like this episode, subscribe to the podcast, and share it with others who enjoy mysterious stories from history. Your support helps us continue exploring real events, fascinating people, and the moments that shaped our world. Thank you for listening. This has been History's Mysterious Minds.